Hello everyone, welcome back to my blog. Today, the topic that we are going to discuss is the requirement analysis. We have taken a couple of sessions on this aspect because, as we have previously discussed, this is the key area of SDLC, and failure of this aspect can lead to the failure of the product. As in, the end product that is delivered is not what is the requirement of the customer. So, we need to analyze this, we need to drill down to the base level so that we do not miss anything and nothing mismatch or even a slight change is not made in the product, which is like which is can be called as a failure of the product. So, so requirement analysis, if we say, in any organization, whenever there is a new product which is created in response to the needs of the business or in response to the needs of the stakeholders, so that product is that needs of the stakeholders are the requirements. So you can either build a new product or sometimes it's the existing product which is modified. So everything, be it a new or existing but a redevelopment or a development, requires the requirements and the needs. So they are to be studied in a very well manner by a business analyst, so that all the teams who are part of that activity, they do not fail on any aspect in their efforts. So that is why it's very critical for the success or the failure of the project. So what happens is that, however, sometimes what happens is, despite you are spending tremendous time and resources on the development, there can be a mismatch, so between what is required and what was actually built. Hence, we need requirement analysis in early stages so that we can avoid major failures in the product. So, we have certain activities which are related to this analysis. One is eliciting requirements. So, eliciting requirements, it's basically gathering of the requirements by communication with the customer. So there can be it's basically communication in with various teams. You have to sit, you have to invite the customer for various kind of discussions. You need to ask a lot of questions. That is why a business analyst is always expected to have always a question like why, and should also have an answer like how, means why are you asking for this thing and how can we deliver it. So when you are discussing, when you are eliciting requirements, in that case you can go to the base level to understand from the customer that what is the need and why are they needing it and what all needs to be covered in those requirements, so that anything which is related to a requirement is not missed. So means all the use cases are covered. Second is analyzing the requirements. So you basically determine that if the requirements which are stated, if they are unclear or they are incomplete, sometimes ambiguous or contradictory requirements. So in this part, what is happens is you try to figure out all the ambiguous requirements or complicated requirements, and you try to resolve them before you can move to the next step. For this also you need discussions. For this you need internal, you need brainstorming yourself as well, the business also, so that nothing remains as a question mark in context to the clarity or the complexity of that requirement, so that it's very clear. Because once the requirements are discussed by in this step 1, then you can have complexity in step 2. So you need to discuss all those complexities with the business. Then you have requirements modeling. Requirements modeling is basically, it's the documentation of requirements in various forms. It can be use cases, user stories, or anything that is best required. So if you are using agile, you'll always definitely have the user stories. And this is the third thing, that once you are clear that your requirements are your you have reduced the complexity by brainstorming the business and brainstorming yourself as well, so that you can find a better solution and not very complex. So after that, you have this requirements modeling. You make a proper model, as in what are the requirements, so that that's very clear for all the teams. Then we have review and the retrospective. So this is conducted so that you can check previous iterations of the requirements, previous iterations when all you have discussed the requirements, in order to make the improvement in the process going forward, so that nothing is for example, what you had a discussion with the business in the last um, session, and maybe some things which you were not clear of, or sometimes business was not clear of, you have that retrospective thinking of those things, so that next time you are going forward, you know what you're supposed to ask, you know what business might not be clear about, that you need to ask or you need to clear them up about, so that uh, nobody is stuck. And because a business analyst is the person who is approaching and should be very clear, so he needs to have very, he should document these points very clearly, so that he's not failing at any step, when either it's making of the documentation for further teams to work on it, or helping business to understand that what the product they had asked for, we are delivering the same thing. So this is basically the requirement analysis. We'll move to the next topic in the next vlog. That's all for today. If you have any issues, you can write to me in comments. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.